The trunk alarm is not flashing. It should be. The guard notices the latch is warm, recently handled, and the security seal is intact anyway. A child's shoe sits beneath the bumper, clean, placed, not dropped. He stops breathing for a moment. Protocol says wait for authorization. The palace corridor behind him goes quiet. The silence feels deliberate. He places his hand on the latch and does not call it in. The seal light is steady green. It shouldn't be. The guard registers it before he understands why his body has already slowed. The vehicle sits in the service lane, engine cold, doors locked, trunk sealed. According to the system, untouched. According to the air, recently disturbed. Heat still radiates faintly from the metal, not enough to be obvious, just enough to be wrong. He crouches not fully, just enough to bring his eyes level with the latch. The plastic seal is unbroken, serial number aligned. Clean, too clean. No scuffing from boots, no grit from the paving stones. Someone cared how this would look. A child's shoe rests near the rear tire. Small, polished, placed parallel to the curb. He does not pick it up. The radio at his shoulder crackles once, then quiets. The palace behind him is in its afternoon lull, footsteps distant, doors closing softly, the controlled hum of a place that believes it is secure. He listens for something else. Breathing, movement. There is nothing. Protocol is clear. A sealed vehicle is not accessed without authorization. Anomalies are reported upward. He touches the seal with 2 fingers. Warm. Control, confirm last interaction with vehicle Juliet 7, he says, voice even. A pause, longer than the system latency allows. Juliet 7 shows no access logged, Control replies. Status green. He straightens slightly. The shoe remains in his peripheral vision. He does not look at it again. A senior aide approaches from the colonnade, pace measured, expression already set. The guard recognizes the cadence, intervention without urgency. The aide stops just short of the vehicle, eyes flicking to the seal, then away. You're holding up the lane, the aide says, not a question. This vehicle is cleared. Yes, sir. Then clear it. The guard nods. He does not move. He shifts his weight a fraction to block the trunk from casual access. The aide notices. His jaw tightens. Is there a problem? There's an irregularity. The word is precise. It buys seconds. The aide exhales through his nose. All systems show green. They don't account for temperature, the guard says. Silence stretches. The aide's gaze hardens, calculating angles not related to safety. You are not authorized to delay this vehicle. The guard feels the pressure register behind his eyes. He thinks of the shoe. He thinks of how carefully it was placed. Requesting secondary verification, he says. You're denied. The denial is immediate, too immediate. The guard acknowledges it. He does not step aside. Behind them, movement ripples through the corridor. A woman's voice cuts through the controlled quiet, low at first, then sharper. He doesn't turn, but he knows who it is by the way the space reacts to her presence. Conversations stop. A door opens and closes too quickly. Where is he? Kate's voice carries, controlled but brittle. He was here. The aide stiffens. He does not look at her. The guard feels the moment compress. The system says green. The seal says untouched. The shoe says otherwise. The denial says more than it should. Kate steps into view, posture straight, eyes scanning faces rather than objects. She stops when she sees the guard by the vehicle. Her gaze drops just once to the ground near the tire. She does not react outwardly. She doesn't need to. The guard sees the change in her breathing. That's not his, someone says behind her too quickly. Kate looks at the guard, not pleading, assessing, asking without words whether he sees what she sees. The aide steps between them. This area is secure. Please return inside. The guard's hand hovers near the latch. He knows the cost of touching it. He knows the cost of not touching it is higher but less visible. He waits one more second. The radio crackles again, this time with an edge. Guard, step away from the vehicle. He does not answer. The silence that follows is no longer passive. It presses. He feels eyes on him now, from cameras that were idle moments ago, from people who understand what hesitation means in a place built on obedience. Kate's voice drops. "Where is my child?" The guard inhales. His fingers close around the latch. The seal is still green. It is not going to break itself. The latch gives with a muted crack that is louder than it should be. The seal splits cleanly, plastic parting without resistance. The guard notes it automatically, manufactured to fail quietly, designed to avoid attention. He lifts the trunk lid in one controlled motion, keeping his body between the opening and the onlookers. The air inside is warmer, scent. Ale. He does not see the child at first. He sees a folded blanket secured too tightly at the corners. He sees a toy pressed against the lining, wedged as if to stop it from rattling. Then he sees movement, not sudden, not frantic. A small shift, like someone conserving energy. The guard leans in. "Easy," he says, not loud enough for anyone else to hear. A face turns toward him, eyes wide but dry, shock without panic, the kind that comes from being told to stay quiet and obey. The child's hands are clenched around the edge of the blanket, knuckles pale, breathing shallow, controlled, trained in a way no child should be. The guard reaches in, slow, palms visible. He checks for restraints. There are none. That, too, is deliberate. Behind him, the aide's voice snaps. "Close that immediately." The guard does not acknowledge him. He lifts the child out in one smooth movement, turning his body so the trunk interior is shielded from the cameras, now audibly adjusting. The child clings to his tunic without crying, face pressed into the red wool. The guard feels the tremor start then, a fine vibration running through the small frame. Kate is there instantly, not rushing, not reaching. She stops herself a step away, hands clenched at her sides, eyes fixed on the child's hair, the rise and fall of his shoulders. "He's cold," the guard says. That is all he allows himself to say. He shifts the child toward her. She takes him, careful, precise, as if any sudden movement might fracture what remains intact. The child does not let go of the guard immediately. His fingers tighten once, then release. The aide steps forward, face pale now, authority recalibrating. This is a serious breach. "It is," the guard agrees. The aide falters at the interruption. The guard has not raised his voice. He hasn't accused. He has simply confirmed. Security personnel arrive in a staggered line, too slow to be coincidence. Their eyes flick to the broken seal, to the open trunk, to Kate holding her child. No one speaks. They wait for direction. The guard turns to control. "Child recovered from Juliet 7. Request immediate medical check and secure perimeter." There is a delay, again. "That wasn't authorized," Control says finally. "It's done," the guard replies. Kate meets his eyes. There is no gratitude there. There is recognition. She nods once and steps back, surrounded immediately by aides who did not know what to do until now. The aide clears his throat. "We'll need your report amended, the system." "Recorded what it recorded," the guard says. "I will submit what I observed." "That won't be necessary," the aide says quickly. "This can be handled internally." The guard looks at the trunk again, at the lining where the toy was wedged, at the way the blanket had been folded to limit movement without restraint. This was not improvisation. This was procedure, misused by someone who knew the rules as well as he did. Respectfully, the guard says, "It already has been." A senior officer steps closer, voice low. "You've crossed a line." The guard meets his gaze. "I know." The cameras finish adjusting. Red light steady, recording. The guard feels the weight of it settle, not fear but consequence. He has protected the child. That part is complete. What follows is not about safety anymore. It is about control. Escort him, the aide says. Two officers move to flank the guard, careful not to touch him yet. Protocol still matters. Appearances always do. As they begin to walk him away, the guard glances once more at the vehicle, at the trunk that should never have opened. He understands now that the seal was never meant to stop him. It was meant to test who would obey it. The corridor outside medical is too quiet. Not the controlled quiet of protocol, but the kind that settles after a disturbance everyone has agreed not to name. The guard stands where he's been placed, off to the side, visible but irrelevant by design. His tunic has been brushed clean. The faint crease where the child clutched him remains. No one mentions it. Through the glass he can see the child sitting upright on the examination table, wrapped now, a cup of water held with both hands. The doctor speaks softly, movements economical. No alarms, no rush. That too feels wrong. The guard's earpiece hums, then clears. You are to remain in position. Understood. He doesn't look away from the room. He watches the way the child's eyes track movement, not faces. Watches how he keeps his feet tucked in, heels pressed together, training without instruction. A senior officer joins him, stands close but not confrontational. You made a unilateral decision. Yes, sir. There will be questions. There should be. The officer studies him for a moment, then looks through the glass as well. Systems show no fault. No alerts were suppressed. The guard nods once, then the route was never logged. The officer doesn't respond. Silence again, this time weighted. You're implying internal access. I'm stating absence of record. That earns a glance, careful, measuring how far the guard intends to go. Across the corridor, a screen flickers on. Live feed summary scroll, movement logs, access points, biometric checkpoints. The child's timeline ends in a blank column where a transition should be, not an error, an omission. The guard steps closer before he's told not to. He scans the data, entry logged, exit logged, between them nothing. That's not possible, an analyst mutters. It is if the handoff was clean, the guard says. The analyst looks up sharply. You're not assigned. I was there. Kate exits the room then. The doctor speaks quietly to her, then steps away. Kate's face is composed, but the guard sees the strain in the way she holds her shoulders, as if bracing against impact that hasn't arrived yet. She approaches the screen. No one stops her. Show me, she says. The analyst hesitates, then brings up the route map. Lines trace expected movement. One line simply stops. Kate doesn't react immediately. She studies it like a document she's already memorized. That corridor is covered. Yes. And staffed. Yes. So where did he go? No one answers. The guard feels the pressure shift. Questions are no longer about his decision. They're about theirs. A message flashes across his earpiece, private channel, stand by for reassignment. He doesn't acknowledge it. Instead, he keys a request he shouldn't have access to anymore. Peripheral patrol logs, secondary cameras, systems no one checks unless something has already gone wrong. One feed opens late, 30 seconds late. It shows the service lane, the vehicle, the trunk already closed. The timestamp doesn't match the seal log. The guard feels the line tighten around him. Someone notices the unauthorized access. He hears his name spoken quietly behind him, followed by the word careful. Kate looks at the feed. At the discrepancy, she turns to him. You saw this before anyone else, she says, not a question. Yes. Then you know this wasn't an accident. The guard holds her gaze. He does not confirm it. He does not deny it. He says the only thing that still fits within his role. I know the system behaved exactly as it was told to. The reassignment order comes through again, firmer this time. Guard, report to holding. He looks at the child through the glass once more. The child looks back briefly, then away. The system has closed ranks. The guard steps back, already calculating how much room that leaves him to keep moving forward. Holding is not a room meant for comfort. It is meant for pause. The guard stands inside it alone, jacket removed, cap resting on the narrow shelf where regulations say it should be placed. The walls absorb sound too well. No echo, no feedback. A place designed so nothing lingers, not voices, not arguments, not responsibility. The door remains open. That, he notes, is intentional. Two senior officers observe from the corridor. Not guards, overseers. Their presence is administrative, not protective. The guard keeps his hands behind his back, posture correct, eyes forward. He does not ask how long this will take. A tablet is set on the table in front of him. "Review your statement," one officer says. "You'll notice we've streamlined it." The guard looks down. The document is clean, too clean. The trunk is referred to as accessed. The seal is described as malfunctioning. The child is located. There is no mention of intent, no mention of denial, no mention of time lost between awareness and action. "This is inaccurate," the guard says. "It's sufficient," the officer replies. "It protects everyone involved." The guard lifts his eyes, including whoever gave the instruction. The officer's jaw tightens. "You're speculating." "I'm reading what isn't here." Silence stretches again, but this time it is brittle. One of the officers glances down the corridor, where aides move with renewed purpose. The palace has resumed its rhythm. The disruption is being absorbed. "We're not questioning your instincts," the officer says carefully, "only your execution." The guard considers the tablet. He considers how easy it would be to sign, how cleanly this would end. Reassignment, quiet distance, the child protected officially. "Execution is the only part I control," he says. A third figure joins them, a director-level official, expression neutral, eyes sharp. "You've placed us in a difficult position." "I followed risk indicators," the guard replies. "You violated protocol." "Yes." The director nods once. "And if you had?" The guard answers without pause. "The outcome would be different." The director studies him. "That's an assumption." "It's a calculation." The director turns the tablet slightly, revealing a second page the guard hasn't seen. A movement chart, edited, smoothed. The 30-second gap is gone. "This is what will stand," the director says. "Systems don't lie, people do." The guard feels the pressure peak, not of. Not loud, but complete. He understands now that the question is whether the incident will be investigated. It's whether he will remain part of the institution that does the investigating. A quiet alert pulses in his peripheral vision, his personal device still authorized for now. An internal ping from a patrol unit he rerouted earlier. Unscheduled movement logged near the service corridors. Another vehicle, different identifier, same clearance tier. The guard does not react outwardly. He commits the detail to memory. "I won't sign this," he says. The director exhales slowly. "Then you leave us no choice." "I understand." The director gestures and the tablet goes dark. "You're relieved pending review." The words land with procedural weight. The guard acknowledges them. He replaces his cap on his head, precise, deliberate. As he steps out, he catches sight of Kate down the corridor, surrounded again but watching. She meets his eyes. There is no nod this time, only a look that says she understands what this costs him and what it costs if he stops. The guard walks past her without slowing. He cannot protect the child from here, but he can still see the edges of the system. And the system, he now knows, is moving again. The service corridor smells faintly of polish and warm circuitry. The guard registers it as he walks, habit more than intention. He is no longer officially on duty, yet no one stops him. That is the first indication that the boundary has shifted. When authority wants silence, it does not always erect walls. Sometimes it opens doors and watches who walks through. He keeps his pace unremarkable, not cautious, not urgent. 2 levels below the medical wing, the palace runs differently. Cameras are fewer, older. The corridors narrower, built for function, not ceremony. Staff here do not look up unless required. He passes them as if he still belongs. His device vibrates once in his pocket. The unscheduled patrol ping he noticed earlier has updated. The vehicle identifier has changed again. Same clearance tier. Same routing pattern. No logged passenger. That is not coincidence. That is method. He stops at an access panel and studies the reflection in the brushed metal. His face gives nothing away. He keys in a request he should no longer be allowed to make. The panel accepts it after a half-second delay, long enough to tell him someone is watching, not long enough to stop him. The corridor beyond opens into a holding bay. Empty now, recently used. Tire marks are still visible, faint but directional. The guard follows them with his eyes, noting where they stop, not at the marked exit, but near a secondary lift reserved for logistics and senior staff. A lift that bypasses public tracking displays. A voice speaks behind him, "You shouldn't be here." He doesn't turn immediately. He finishes mapping the bay in his mind first, then he pivots. The official standing there is not uniformed. Senior administrative. Calm. No visible security detail, which means one is nearby. The man's expression is composed, almost sympathetic. "You are relieved," the official continues. "Pending review," the guard replies. That review assumes compliance. The guard nods once, then it's incomplete. The official steps closer, lowering his voice. "This search is over. The child is safe. Continuing creates unnecessary exposure." "Exposure to what?" the guard asks. The official considers his answer carefully. "To misinterpretation." The guard looks back at the lift. The routing doesn't align with safety protocol. It aligns with discretion. That's not the same thing. The official's expression hardens by degrees. "You're interpreting authority misuse where there is none." "I'm observing pattern repetition." The guard feels it then, the shift, the moment authority stops justifying and starts warning. "This isn't your role anymore," the official says. "You've done your part." The guard thinks of the child's dry eyes, of the way he conserved breath, of how quiet compliance had been mistaken for calm. "My part isn't defined by assignment," he says. "It's defined by outcome." The official exhales. "You're risking your career." The guard answers without looking at him. "That was already spent." A door opens at the far end of the bay. 2 security officers enter, not aggressive, not hurried. Their presence is controlled pressure, not force. The official gestures subtly. The message is clear: step back now or be removed. Before either officer speaks, the guard's device vibrates again. Another update. Another 30-second gap, this one flagged and then quietly cleared. The guard finally turns fully toward the official. Someone is still moving assets. The official's eyes flick just once. "Enough." "That's classified movement," he says. "It involves a child," the guard replies. The officers take a step closer. The guard weighs the room. 3 exits, 2 blocked. One unmonitored, leading deeper into logistics, places authority asum. Ease obedience replaces scrutiny. He makes his decision. "I'm escalating this beyond administrative containment," he says. The official's voice drops. "You don't have standing." The guard meets his gaze. "Then stop me." No one does. That is the second indication. The boundary has shifted. The guard steps past them, choosing the unmonitored corridor. He hears the officers move, but not fast enough to catch him. Not yet. Behind him, the official speaks into a concealed mic, tone clipped. He's proceeding. Ahead, the corridor narrows. The lights dim slightly, responding to a system that does not recognize him as authorized but has not yet been told to deny him. The guard keeps moving, because now he is certain of one thing. Whoever has control of the system does not have control of him. The corridor tightens into a service spine the palace rarely acknowledges. Pipes run exposed along the ceiling, humming softly. The lighting shifts from warm to functional, stripping color from everything it touches. The guard moves with purpose now, not speed. Speed would draw attention. Purpose blends in. His device loses signal for 3 seconds, then it returns. In those 3 seconds, the system tries to correct itself. A door ahead locks with a soft click, not the heavy sound of a security lockdown, the polite sound of administrative denial. The guard stops just short of it, listening. Footsteps echo behind him, still measured. They want him contained, not confronted. He raises his device and reroutes through an older access node, legacy infrastructure, rarely updated because it still works. The door hesitates, then unlocks. Inside is a staging area, unmarked crates, equipment cases without labels, a place where things wait to become something else. A man stands near a console, back turned, jacket off. He looks like logistics. He moves like security. The man freezes when he hears the door. "You're not cleared," the man says without turning. "Neither are you," the guard replies. The man turns slowly. His eyes go first to the guard's cap, then to the insignia. He calculates. This area is restricted. So is child movement. The man's jaw tightens. "You don't know what you're talking about." The guard steps closer. He notes the console's display, routing schedules, override windows, clearance shadows, patterns hiding in plain sight. The man shifts to block his view, too late. "Who authorized the shadow window?" the guard asks. The man doesn't answer. Footsteps approach again, closer now. Less restrained, the official has lost patience. "This doesn't end well for you," the man says quietly. The guard's device vibrates, an incoming alert from a channel he didn't expect. A patrol captain he trusts using an outdated call sign, seeing discrepancies, holding position. "Tell me what you need." The guard doesn't smile. He doesn't acknowledge the relief. He acts. "Lock the bay doors," he says into the device. "Manual override now." The man lunges not violently but urgently to shut down the console. The guard intercepts him using body position rather than force. They collide lightly, controlled. No punches, no spectacle, just resistance. The bay doors slam shut somewhere above them. The sound reverberates down the corridor. The footsteps stop. Silence again, but this time it's unstable. The official's voice comes through a wall speaker, composed but edged. "You are interfering with protected operations." The guard steps back from the console, hands visible. "Then explain why a child was routed through them." There is a pause too long. The man at the console looks at the guard now with something like fear. Not of him, but of what has been exposed. "You've crossed into a space you don't understand," the official says. "I understand enough," the guard replies. "This wasn't about safety, it was about control." The speaker clicks off. The guard knows what comes next. Containment will escalate, charges will be framed, the narrative will be prepared. But the doors are locked, the records are open, and someone outside this corridor is now paying attention. He keys his device one last time, transmitting a snapshot of the routing screen to multiple endpoints. Oversight, audit, redundancy systems designed for crises no one admits exist. The lights flicker. The system is reacting. The guard steps away from the console as alarms, subtle internal, begin to register. Not public, not loud, but real. Behind him the man whispers, "You've just made enemies." The guard adjusts his cap, posture steady. "I already had them," he says. The alarms do not announce themselves. They register as delays, doors taking a second longer to open, lights dimming half a shade lower than standard. The kind of adjustments meant to slow movement without admitting resistance. The guard feels it immediately. The system is no longer pretending neutrality. He exits the staging area under escort that does not touch him. Two officers flank at a distance calibrated to look procedural, not punitive. Their eyes are forward. They have been told not to engage unless he forces it. The corridors above are changing. Staff presence increases, but movement narrows. Routes that were open an hour ago now funnel traffic past observation points. Containment disguised as efficiency. His device vibrates once more. A single line from the patrol captain, oversight acknowledged, waiting. Waiting is the palace's preferred state. Things go away there. The guard is directed toward a briefing room he recognizes immediately. Windowless, sound-treated, designed for alignment. The door closes behind him, soft as felt. Inside, three figures wait, senior enough that rank insignia has become unnecessary. One of them, the director, does not sit. He stands at the end of the table, hands folded, expression neutral. "You forced a systems response," the director says. "I documented misuse," the guard replies. "Documentation is not your mandate. Protection is." The director tilts his head slightly. "The child is safe. For now." The words land heavier than intended. One of the seated officials stiffens. The director's gaze sharpens. "You're implying ongoing risk." "I'm stating incomplete resolution." The director gestures and a screen activates. Footage from the service lane appears, the vehicle, the trunk, the moment frozen just before the seal breaks. It is paused deliberately before action. "This," the director says, "is where the line was crossed." The guard studies the frame, the warm metal, the shoe just out of view, the second before instinct overrides permission. "The line was crossed earlier," he says. "This is where it became visible." Silence stretches again, but now it is controlled. The director circles the table slowly, hands still folded. "We have mechanisms for internal correction." Those mechanisms routed a child into a sealed compartment. A beat. That interpretation assumes intent. It assumes capability. The director stops. "You are not equipped to determine motive." "No," the guard agrees, "but I'm equipped to stop outcomes." A second screen activates. A revised incident timeline, clean, linear. The trunk opening is reclassified as an emergency deviation caused by sensor lag. The denial orders are absent. The delay before action compressed into seconds. "This is the official record," the director says. "It preserves institutional stability." The guard understands then that this chapter is not about the trunk. It is about ownership of the moment. Who gets to define what happened? "You want me to affirm this?" the guard says. "Yes." "And if I do?" The director meets his eyes. "Then you remain the anomaly." The guard considers the room, the controlled lighting, the sound dampening, the absence of clocks. This is where time is softened until resistance loses shape. "Authorization was denied," the guard says quietly, "twice." The director's expression does not change. Authorization is contextual. Denial is explicit. A pause. The director exhales, slow. "You are very close to making this difficult." The guard thinks of the child's hands, how tightly they held the blanket, of how obedience had been mistaken for calm. "I already did," he says. The director turns back to the frozen frame on the screen. "You tore open a trunk without clearance." "Yes." "And you would do it again." The guard does not answer immediately. He feels the weight of the question, not as a trap but as a test. He answers with care. "I will not wait when indicators contradict the system." The director nods once. "Then we have a problem." The screen goes dark. The room feels smaller. Outside the door, footsteps gather more than before. The director speaks, final and precise. You are suspended from operational duty pending formal inquiry. The guard inclines his head, understood. And until that inquiry concludes, the director adds, you will have no access to restricted zones. The guard feels the last boundary close. He also feels something else, certainty. Because the trunk was never the end of this. It was the precedent. The escort that removes him from the briefing room is different from before. Closer, firmer, still polite. The guard walks between them without resistance, posture unchanged. He notes the route immediately, diverted from the public spine, redirected through administrative arteries where fewer eyes watch and more decisions are made quietly. His access badge no longer opens doors on its own. Each checkpoint requires a pause, a glance, a silent confirmation from someone unseen. Suspension is not isolation, it is repositioning. They stop outside a temporary operations hub that did not exist this morning. Glass walls, internal blinds half drawn. Inside, analysts move faster than necessary, voices low, screens crowded with overlapping data feeds. The palace is adjusting. The director does not follow him out. That, too, is intentional. Authority has withdrawn just enough to avoid direct association with what me's next. A uniformed captain steps forward, someone operational, not political. The captain's tone is respectful, but his eyes are cautious. You're to surrender your device. The guard removes it from his pocket and places it in the captain's hand. He feels the loss immediately, not panic, but narrowing. Information is oxygen here. You'll remain on premises, the captain continues. Your movements will be limited. Understood. As they turn him away, a raised voice cuts through the hub. An analyst has found something, or failed to suppress it quickly enough. The guard doesn't hear the words, but he sees the reaction. Screens change, hands still. A look passed between two senior figures that says this complicates things. The corridor ahead leads to a holding office overlooking the inner courtyard. It is not a cell. It is worse. Windows allow visibility both ways, a place where one is seen waiting. The guard stands at the window. Outside, the courtyard is immaculate, order restored. No sign that anything has gone wrong. Staff cross it in measured lines. A child's absence leaves no physical mark. Behind him, the captain hesitates. Off the record, he says quietly, you forced eyes open. Not enough, the guard replies. The captain nods once and leaves. Time stretches. Without his device, minutes lose definition. He uses other markers, the change in light across the stone, the cadence of footsteps outside, the moment when movement increases slightly as decisions ripple outward. Then the door opens again. Kate steps inside. No aides, no buffer. She closes the door herself. They stand a few feet apart. The guard remains at attention. She does not ask him to relax. They're rewriting it, she says. Yes. They say the system failed. It didn't. She studies his face, searching for anything he hasn't said. They want this to end. So do I. Her jaw tightens, not like this. She moves to the window, looking out at the courtyard as if it might answer her. He keeps asking why he had to be quiet. The guard feels the words land, heavy and precise. He does not respond immediately. Because someone told him silence was safety, he says finally. Kate turns back to him, and was it? No. Silence settles between them, shared but not comfortable. They're limiting my access, she says, reframing everything as a one-time failure. And the routing. Classified. The guard nods, then it's still active. Her eyes sharpen, you're sure? I'm certain. Kate exhales, controlled. They think you're the problem. I am, the guard agrees, for them. She steps closer, lowering her voice. If this happens again, if I see even a hint. You won't be in time, the guard says, not unkindly. That's why it worked. The truth of it hangs there. Kate straightens, decision made. What do you need? The guard meets her gaze. He understands the risk she's taking just by asking. Time, he says, and one unsecured channel. She nods once. I can give you one. The door opens before they can say more. An aide stands there, expression apologetic but firm. Ma'am, you're needed. Kate gives the guard a final look, something between warning and resolve, then leaves. The door closes. Moments later, the lights in the room dim by a fraction. Not a power issue. A signal. The guard turns back to the window as movement in the courtyard shifts. Security patterns subtly changing, forming a corridor that wasn't there before. Something is being moved. And this time, he is meant not to see it. The movement in the courtyard is subtle enough to pass as routine. The guard notices it because it is. Two security teams adjust positions without speaking to each other. A maintenance cart pauses where it shouldn't, blocking a sightline for precisely 8 seconds. Foot traffic thins along one edge of the stone path, redirecting flow without signage. Containment without announcement. From the holding office, the guard tracks the pattern with his eyes alone. Without his device, he relies on experience, how people move when they're covering for something versus when they're responding to it. This is neither panic nor drill. This is choreography. A vehicle enters through the service arch at the far end of the courtyard, different from Juliet 7. Same clearance tier. No markings. It does not stop where vehicles usually stop. It rolls past, slow, deliberate, and disappears under the west wing. The guard exhales through his nose. That wing bypasses ceremonial oversight entirely. Storage, archival access, legacy infrastructure. Someone is still using the old routes. The door behind him opens, not abruptly, intentionally quiet. A junior officer steps in, eyes avoiding direct contact. He places a folder on the table and leaves without speaking. That alone is irregular. Documents are not delivered to suspended personnel unless someone wants a record created without being seen doing it. The guard opens the folder. Inside are printouts, raw logs unfiltered, timestamp. MPS overlapping where they shouldn't. Clearance shadows layered over legitimate movements. A route map showing the child's earlier path, then branching. One line official, one line suppressed. The suppressed line does not end at the trunk. It continues. The guard closes the folder halfway, then opens it again, slower this time. He forces himself not to jump ahead. He reads from the start, reconstructing the sequence as it must have happened, not as it was recorded. The trunk was a transfer point, a pause, a test. The child was never meant to stay there long. A knock sounds, one measured. Before the guard can respond, the door opens. The captain from earlier steps inside, face set. You didn't get this from me, the captain says. I didn't get anything, the guard replies. The captain nods. They're scrubbing deeper now. Oversight flagged inconsistencies, too many eyes. So they'll bury it, the guard says. They'll relocate it, the captain corrects. The guard looks up. What? The captain lowers his voice. They're invoking protective continuity, framing it as a preventive measure, expanded authority, fewer logs. The guard feels the pressure tighten in his chest, not panic, not anger, focus. Who approved it? The captain hesitates, high enough that names don't stick. The guard flips to the last page of the folder. A still image, grainy, pulled from an auxiliary camera. The vehicle beneath the west wing. A door open. A figure just inside the frame, partially obscured. A child-sized silhouette. The guard closes the folder. This isn't finished, he says. The captain shakes his head slightly. It is if you move. The guard meets his eyes. If I move, it continues. Silence holds between them. The captain's loyalty fractures just enough to show the fault line. They'll isolate you completely if you push, the captain says. No access, no allies. I don't need allies, the guard replies. I need proximity. The captain studies him, then reaches into his pocket and places something small on the table. A temporary access card. Limited. Old issue. The kind that works only where people assume no one would still have one. 5 minutes, the captain says. After that, you're on your own. The guard takes the card. That's enough. As the captain leaves, the courtyard outside shifts again. The vehicle does not reemerge. The guard straightens his jacket, posture precise. He knows where the West Wing leads. He knows what waits there. Controlled silence, plausible justifications, authority insulated from scrutiny. He also knows this. The system didn't fail. It adapted. An adaptation unchecked is how harm learns to hide. He moves toward the door. The access card works longer than it should. That more than the locked doors tells the guard how deep this goes. Old credentials aren't supposed to function unless someone left them active. Someone wanted a path that didn't appear in current systems, something deniable, something reversible. The West Wing smells different. Stone dust and old paper. Climate control here favors preservation over comfort. The lights hum softly, not the bright wash of public corridors but a narrow, functional glow that creates shadows by default. He moves without haste. 5 minutes is generous only if wasted. The first junction branches 3 ways. He chooses the middle route, not because it's direct but because it's neglected. Authority prefers clean lines. Neglect is where shortcuts survive. A door ahead stands ajar by a few centimeters. That alone is a violation. Doors here close automatically. Someone wanted it to look accidental. Inside is a storage hall repurposed into a temporary staging space. Shelving units pushed aside. Soft barriers installed where none should be. A mobile privacy screen blocks part of the room, angled just enough to hide what's behind it from the entrance. The guard stops before crossing the threshold. He listens. Breathing light, controlled. He steps inside. Behind the screen sits the child. Not restrained, not panicking, seated on a low bench, feet not quite touching the floor. Hands folded in his lap exactly as he was taught to do when adults were handling something important. A staff member kneels nearby, speaking in a low, steady tone, back turned. Just until they finish, the staff member says, "You're doing very well." The guard steps fully into the room. The staff member turns. Recognition flashes across his face, followed immediately by calculation. He rises slowly, palms open, adopting a posture meant to calm situations, not resolve them. "You're not authorized to be here," the man says. The guard does not look at him. He looks at the child. The child looks back. No fear, no relief, just a question forming that he hasn't been allowed to ask yet. "Come here," the guard says quietly. The staff member steps into the space between them. "That won't be necessary. We're ensuring continuity of care." "Step aside. This is above your clearance." The guard finally meets his eyes. "Then you should have moved faster." The man's jaw tightens. He glances toward a wall panel, calling for support without pressing anything. The guard reads the impulse and acts before it becomes a decision. He moves not aggressively but decisively, placing himself between the man and the panel. His presence is enough. The staff member retreats half a step. That is all the opening the guard needs. He kneels in front of the child, lowering himself to eye level. "You didn't do anything wrong," he says. The child blinks, swallows. "They said it was a mistake." "They were wrong." The child hesitates. then stands when the guard offers his hand. The grip is immediate, tight, as if the decision cost him something. The staff member exhales sharply. You don't understand the implications of this. I understand them exactly, the guard replies. Footsteps sound in the corridor, this time faster, less measured. The 5 minutes are ending. The guard lifts the child into his arms, turning so the child's face is shielded. He moves toward the exit, already choosing the path that will force visibility instead of containment. Behind him, the staff member speaks, voice strained. This won't disappear. The guard does not turn back. I'm counting on it. As he reaches the junction, alarms finally surface. Not loud, not public, but unmistakable. Administrative containment has failed. What comes next will require names, explanations, and risk. He steps into the brighter corridor, carrying the one thing the system can no longer hide. The child presses his face into the guard's shoulder. Outside the West Wing, the palace will soon have to decide what it protects and what it exposes. The guard keeps walking. The first order is not shouted. It arrives as a change in air pressure. Doors ahead open wider than necessary. Footsteps multiply behind him, no longer staggered. The palace has shifted from concealment to interception. The guard adjusts his grip on the child, not tighter, just more secure, turning his body so the child's head stays tucked beneath his chin, face hidden from the widening corridor. The child is silent. That worries him more than crying would have. A voice comes from overhead, calm and amplified. Guard, stop where you are. He keeps walking. The corridor ahead narrows into a junction he knows well. One path leads to public visibility, ceremonial zones, cameras that record by default. The other curves back into administrative control. The system subtly favors the second, lights brighter, doors time to welcome him. He takes the first. Footsteps accelerate. Someone calls his name, not an order this time, but a warning disguised as familiarity. Think carefully, a senior officer says, closing distance. You're escalating this beyond recovery. The guard slows just enough to speak without turning. Recovery for whom? For everyone. The guard reaches the edge of the ceremonial spine. Light changes. Sound opens up. Distant voices, the soft echo of a space meant to be seen. He feels the system hesitate. Visibility is expensive. A hand brushes his sleeve, not forceful testing. He shifts his shoulder, angling the child away. The gesture is subtle, controlled, unmistakable. Do not touch him, the guard says. The senior officer steps alongside him now, matching pace. You're framing this as protection. It will be reframed as endangerment. That requires intent, the guard replies. Mine is clear. So is theirs, the officer says quietly. That is the first honest thing anyone has said to him in the last hour. They reach the threshold where administrative authority thins. Ahead, staff pause, sensing disruption without understanding it. Cameras tilt, not aggressively but attentively. The child shifts in his arms. A small breath escapes, shaky but steadying. The guard adjusts, murmuring nothing, letting presence do the work. Another voice joins, this one higher, more urgent. An aide, breathless. Medical has cleared the child. There's no justification for continued movement. The guard stops. Not because he agrees, but because stopping here forces a choice. He turns slowly so the assembled officials can see the child's face. Pale, alert, not distressed enough to trigger alarms, distressed enough to matter. This is justification, the guard says. Silence spreads outward. People avert their eyes, not from the child, from responsibility. A director steps forward, expression controlled. You're creating a spectacle. I'm creating a record. The director's gaze flicks to the cameras. He recalibrates. Hand him over now. The guard feels the pressure peak, not physical, not loud. Institutional. This is the moment when compliance would be easiest and most defensible. The child's fingers tighten in the fabric at his shoulder. No, the guard says. The word lands flat, unadorned. It does not invite debate. The director's voice cools. Then you leave us no choice. Two officers step forward, not the same ones as B. F4, these are trained for removal, not persuasion. Their hands are open. Their posture is careful. Containment has become threat. The guard shifts his stance, planting his feet where the floor transitions from private to public stone. He knows this line. He chose it. He lowers his head slightly, just enough for the child to hear him. Stay still, he says. I've got you. The officers move. The officers stop short. Not because they were ordered to, because the cameras are now fully awake. The ceremonial spine does what it was built to do, expose. Light spills from above, clean and unforgiving. Every movement is visible from multiple angles. The quiet audience of staff, aides, and distant officials has thickened into something harder to ignore. Intervention here requires explanation later. That cost calculation ripples outward. The director senses it. His jaw tightens. He lifts a hand, halting the officers without acknowledging why. Stand down, he says, voice controlled. The guard does not relax. He does not step back. He holds position until the threat fully recedes. Only then does he shift, adjusting the child so his weight is better supported. The child exhales, a long breath he has been holding too carefully. Kate appears at the far end of the spine. No announcement, no escort. She moves with purpose, eyes fixed on the child. The crowd parts instinctively, authority recognizing authority even when it refuses to name it. She stops a few steps away. She does not reach for her child immediately. She looks at the guard first. Is he hurt? She asks. No, the guard replies, but he was moved again. That is all it takes. Kate's expression changes, not to anger but to something colder. She turns to the director. You said it was over. The director inclines his head. This is a misunderstanding. Kate steps closer, closing the distance the director prefers to keep. My child was taken twice. The word taken hangs there, impossible to soften. The director chooses his words with care. Protective continuity measures. Kate cuts him off. You don't get to decide continuity without me. Silence locks in. The guard shifts slightly, presenting the child to her without relinquishing control until she is fully ready. She steps forward then, arms steady, and takes him. The child goes willingly this time, face pressed into her shoulder. A hand remains wrapped briefly in the guard's tunic before letting go. Kate holds her child and does not look away from the director. This ends now. The director studies the crowd, the cameras, the guard still standing where the line was drawn. He understands that the cost has changed. We will conduct a full review, he says. Kate's voice is calm. You will open everything. A beat. Yes, the director says. The word is clipped, damaging, necessary. Security patterns shift again, this time outward, protective rather than restrictive. Medical staff approach openly. A senior legal advisor appears at the edge of the group, already anticipating paperwork that cannot be buried. The guard steps back half a pace. His role is receding. That is as it should be. The director turns to him. You are relieved of escort duty. The guard nods, understood. And you will submit to inquiry. Yes. There is no threat in the words now, only process. Kate looks at the guard once more. Thank you. He inclines his head, nothing more. As they lead her and the child away, the guard remains where he is, watching the palace recalibrate in real time. Systems opening under pressure, authority redistributing itself to survive exposure. The captain from earlier appears at his side. You've made this impossible to contain. That was the point. The captain studies him. You know what comes next. Yes. The guard removes his cap and holds it at his side. The ceremonial spine hums softly above him, light steady again. Containment has failed. Accountability will be selective. And he will not be protected from it. The palace does not sleep that night. It slows. Lights dim in stages rather than all at once. Corridors remain staffed beyond their usual rotations. Doors that were once decorative now close with intent. The guard notices these changes as he is escorted, not restrained, not hurried, through spaces he has walked for years without thinking. Inquiry protocol begins before midnight. He sits alone at a narrow table, cap placed precisely in front of him. The room is not hostile. It doesn't need to be. Its purpose is separation, removing him from momentum, from influence, from the child whose absence now defines the silence. A recorder activates without ceremony. State your name and role at the time of the incident. He complies. Questions follow, measured, sequential, designed to narrow his actions into deviations rather than decisions. Why did you delay compliance after denial? Why did you access restricted infrastructure? Why did you transport the child without authorization? He answers each with facts, not defense, time stamps, observations, physical indicators. He does not mention instinct. He does not mention fear. He lets the record show that procedure failed first. The panel listens. Some take notes. Some already know how this will end. Hours later, he is released, not cleared, not charged, pending determination. Outside, dawn begins to bleed into the stonework, turning the palace a color it never holds for long. The guard walks the perimeter once more, unofficial now, unnoticed. Staff avert their eyes, not in shame but caution. Association has become a risk. He passes the courtyard where it began. No shoe, no trace, cleaned thoroughly. A voice stops him. You should have waited. The director stands near the archway, alone this time. No audience, no cameras. Waiting was the risk, the guard replies. The director nods slowly. You understand what you've cost us? Yes. And what it will cost you? Yes. The director studies him. You won't be dismissed. The guard blinks once. That is unexpected. You won't be promoted, the director continues. You won't be commended. Your file will show instability under pressure. The guard absorbs it, and the people responsible. The director looks away just briefly. Reassigned, monitored, some will retire early. Selective accountability, then. The system remains intact, the director says. The guard meets his gaze, for now. The director doesn't argue. Later, in a quiet wing far from inquiry rooms, the guard sees Kate once more. Not by design, by overlap. She stands with a senior physician, listening, nodding. The child sits nearby on a low chair, feet swinging freely now, a book open in his lap. He looks up when he senses the guard. Their eyes meet. The child does not wave. He does not smile. He simply relaxes. Kate notices. She turns, follows the line of his gaze, and sees the guard. She hesitates, then approaches. They're keeping him close, she says. Open access, no corridors without me. Good. She lowers her voice. They won't say it publicly. I know. But they won't forget it either. The guard inclines his head. Neither will he. Kate studies him carefully. What happens to you now? The guard looks down the corridor, at the doors that will open for him more slowly, if at all. I stay, he says, until they decide I don't. She nods once, then I'm glad you're here. She turns back to her child. The guard does not follow. He walks instead toward the outer edge of the palace, where responsibility thins and distance grows. The story will not be told the way it happened. It never is. But a boundary was tested. And it held. because one person refused to let procedure replace presence. The guard stops at the gate, dawn fully breaking now. For the first time since the seal light glowed green, the air feels still. Not safe, but honest. The decision reaches him 3 days later. Not formally, not all at once. It arrives in pieces, access restored to some corridors but not others, a shift in duty roster that places him where visibility is highest and influence is lowest, a quiet note added to his file that will follow him longer than any commendation ever could. He reads it without reaction. The palace has chosen its compromise. He is returned to duty under observational reassignment. No children in his direct care, no command authority, present enough to signal continuity, restricted enough to prevent repetition. The guard accepts it. He stands again at familiar posts, posture unchanged, eyes steady. Tourists pass. Staff move. Life resumes in the way institutions prefer, incrementally, selectively, with memory softened at the edges. But not everything resets. Cameras now linger a fraction longer where they didn't before. Certain routes remain closed without explanation. A few senior aides avoid his gaze altogether. Others meet it with something like recognition. The system learned. So did he. Late one afternoon, as the palace settles into its controlled rhythm, he is posted near a gallery overlooking the inner grounds. From there, he can see the garden path reserved for private movement. Kate walks it with her child beside her. No escort, no hurry. The child holds her hand loosely now. He pauses to examine something in the grass, a leaf, maybe, or nothing at all. Ordinary curiosity reclaimed. Kate notices the guard. She does not stop. She inclines her head once as she passes through his line of sight. The gesture is subtle enough to mean nothing to anyone else. The guard returns it. When they are gone, he remains at attention, eyes forward. There is no follow-up meeting, no apology, no closure offered by the institution. Closure is not how systems survive exposure. Weeks pass. The inquiry concludes quietly. Findings are summarized, language careful, procedural ambiguities identified, safeguards enhanced, no ongoing risk detected. The guard's name appears once, buried mid-paragraph, attached to a phrase that can be read as either cautio, N, or praise, depending on who is reading. He does not contest it. On his last rotation of the week, he pauses at the service lane where Juliet 7 once stood. The space is unremarkable now. Another vehicle occupies it briefly, then leaves. No anomalies, no warmth where there shouldn't be. He scans the ground automatically. Nothing out of place. That, he knows, is not reassurance. It is responsibility transferred elsewhere. As his shift ends, he removes his cap and places it under his arm, standing for a moment longer than required. The palace hums around him, secure, adaptive, intact. He understands the truth of it now. The institution did not protect the child. A person did. And the system adjusted just enough to ensure that person would never be the rule. The guard walks out through the gate at dusk, stone cooling beneath his boots. Tomorrow he will return. The day after that too, as long as he is allowed. Because boundaries do not hold themselves. They hold because someone notices when the seal light stays green and chooses to act anyway.